There's a moment in professional wrestling that can shake an arena. A wrestler has been beaten down for minutes, dragged across the ring, cut off from their partner. The crowd rises to their feet as the exhausted wrestler crawls towards their corner. Their partner stretches out their hand just a few inches away. The crowd begins screaming, "Tag him! Tag him! Tag him!" The wrestler dives, the tag is made, and suddenly the entire building explodes. And that moment has a name. That name is a hot tag. And for decades, that single moment represented one of the most powerful storytelling tools in professional wrestling. But the hot tag is just the ending of something much bigger. Because behind every great tag team match, there's an entire psychological structure designed to manipulate the emotions of the crowd. A structure that has been perfected over nearly a century of professional wrestling. Tonight on Cheap Pop Society, we're going to dive deep into the psychology of tag team wrestling, why it works, why fans responded to it, and why some of the greatest tag teams in wrestling history mastered it like a science. Because when tag team wrestling is done right, it might be one of the most effective storytelling tools in all of professional wrestling.
Booking sheets and double turns, politics and slow burns, booking blunders, legends made, cities cheered and empires fade, take trade tales, late night shows, broken noses, borrowed robes, line them up, we call the spot, give you all the weird they forgot. Sheep pop history. Let the crowd go wild on the memory. Every tale, every brawl, every mystery. Step inside the ring with cheap pop history.
Welcome back to another episode of the Cheap Pop Society, where we break down the history, psychology, and stories that shaped professional wrestling. I, of course, am Trav E, and tonight's episode explores something that once defined entire eras of wrestling, and that is tag team wrestling. There was a time when tag teams weren't just another match on the card. They were attractions. They were main events. They sold out arenas. And some of the loudest crowd reactions in wrestling history came from tag team matches. But tag team wrestling isn't just exciting because there's four people in the ring. It works because of something deeper. Something that wrestling has understood better than almost any form of entertainment. And that is audience psychology. And later in this episode, we're going to break down the exact structure used in almost every legendary tag team match in history. And once you see it, you'll never watch a match in tag team wrestling the same way again. But before we can understand the psychology of tag team wrestling, we need to understand one key idea. Tag team wrestling is not just singles wrestling with more people. It's a completely different language. Professional wrestling has always been about storytelling, and at its core, every match is a story between two characters. But tag team wrestling changes that dynamic completely. Now, instead of two individuals fighting for control, we have two teams competing for dominance. That creates something unique. Because tag team wrestling introduces elements singles wrestling can't replicate. You have teamwork, strategy, isolation, desperation, and anticipation. In fact, the most important emotion in tag team wrestling isn't excitement, it's anticipation. The entire match is designed around making the audience wait for something that they desperately want to see. And the longer they have to wait, the louder the reaction becomes. And the first step into creating that anticipation begins with one of the oldest strategies in tag team wrestling. One of the most important concepts in tag team psychology is something called cutting the ring in half. This is the strategy used by the heel team to isolate their opponent. The goal was simple: trap the babyface wrestler in the wrong corner of the ring, or in the wrong half of the ring, keep them away from their partner, and maintain complete control of the match. Heel teams do this through constant tags, quick double team moves, and positioning themselves between the babyface and their corner. Every time the babyface gets close to escaping, they stop them. And the longer the babyface remains trapped, the more desperate the crowd becomes. Because everyone in the arena can see the partner standing right there, just a few steps away, but the babyface can't reach them. And they're in their corner, getting the crowd on their side. This works every single time. And in a few minutes, we're going to break down how some of the greatest tag teams in wrestling history mastered this strategy better than anybody else. Teams that turn tag team psychology into an art form. Before we get into those legendary teams, we need to understand the emotional core of tag team wrestling. In wrestling terminology, the moment when the heel team takes control of the match is called the heat. This is where the storytelling really begins. The babyface gets beaten down, dragged away from their corner, thrown into the turnbuckle, cut off again and again. Every time the babyface starts to fight back, the heels shut it down. Maybe it's a cheap shot, maybe it's a distraction, could be simply perfect timing. But every time the babyface gets close to making that tag, the heel stops them. And this is where the audience becomes emotionally invested because the crowd wants one thing more than anything else. They want to see that tag. But great tag teams understand something important. If the tag happens too quickly, then that moment loses its power. The anticipation that you're building wavers. Great tag team matches are built in the art of delayed gratification. The audience wants something, but the match refuses to give it to them right away. Instead, it teases it. The babyface gets close, the crowd rises, and then the heels pull them back. The crowd groans, the babyface fights back again, another chance, another near tag, another interruption. Every time this happens, the anticipation grows, the crowd becomes louder, the crowd gets more invested, more desperate to see that tag finally happen. And coming up, we're going to break down one of the greatest hot tag moments in wrestling history and explain exactly why it worked so perfectly. Because eventually, after all that tension, after all that buildup, the moment finally arrives. The hot tag is the emotional climax of a tag team match. After minutes of punishment, the babyface finally creates separation. Maybe they counter a move, maybe they duck a clothesline for a double down, maybe both wrestlers collapse to the mat and from one move or another. Doesn't have to be a clothesline, could be a bunch of different things. Suddenly the crowd begins clapping. Both competitors crawl towards their corners. The heel reaches their partner. The babyface stretches towards theirs. The entire arena is standing. The babyface dives, and the tag is made. And the building, of course, explodes. The fresh partner storms into the ring, clotheslines, drop kicks, body slams, whatever it is. The heels finally get what's coming to them. This is the emotional release, the moment the entire match has been building toward. And when it's done right, the reaction can be deafening. And throughout wrestling history, certain teams mastered this storytelling better than anybody else. You see, few teams understood tag team psychology like the Midnight Express. Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane were masters of controlling the ring. Every tag meant something. Every movement had purpose. Then there was the Rock and Roll Express. Ricky Morton spent entire matches getting beat down, but when Robert Gibson finally got that tag, the crowd erupted. And of course, we can talk about the Road Warriors. Hawk and Animal didn't just deliver hot tags, they delivered destruction. Once one of them entered the ring, the match was practically over. These teams understood something modern wrestling sometimes forgets, and that's that tag team wrestling isn't about necessarily flashy moves, it's about structure and timing. But over time, that structure slowly began to fade. As wrestling evolved, matches became faster, more chaotic, more focused on big moments instead of the storytelling. Many promotions stopped building long-term teams. Instead, they would pair random singles wrestlers together. And when true tag teams exist, that psychology still works because the fundamentals of storytelling never change: isolation, hope, desperation, and finally, triumph. Tag team wrestling is more than just another match type. It's a carefully constructed emotional journey, a story about teamwork, struggle, and the moment when hope finally wins. Because when tag team wrestling is done correctly, few things in professional wrestling can match its power. The roar of a crowd during a perfectly timed hot tag, the drama of a team fighting to survive, the electricity of that moment when everything changes. That's the magic of tag team wrestling. And when the psychology is right, those moments become unforgettable. If you enjoyed this deep dive, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Share it with a friend who loves professional wrestling as much as you do. And remember, the stories do not stop here. Until next time, keep chasing that cheap pop, my friends.